and welcome to your Week 8 Fantasy Football Weekly Rundown. I'm your host, Jet.
And I'm Avi.
And let's jump right into it. Starting off with start or bench. Pick which player to start and pick which one to bench. First off, we've got Jacoby Myers against the Chiefs or Josh Downs against the Texans.
I'm going to take Josh Downs for this one. Jacoby Myers, although he is wide receiver one at the moment, the Raiders are on their third string QB, and although with Anthony Richardson healthy, Josh Downs does seem to be getting less targets. I do think that Josh Downs should have a better week than his down week in Week 7.
Down week, see what you did there. I'm taking Jacoby Myers over this Joe Flacco merchant. With Anthony Richardson healthy, Downs has struggled to produce any sort of meaningful production. So give me Jacoby Myers. Hopefully Desmond Ridder can figure something out against the Chiefs defense. And, he's the only receiver to throw to with Devontae gone, so we'll see how that goes. Next up, we've got Romeo Doubs against the Jaguars or Nick Chubb against the Ravens.
I'm going to take Nick Chubb against the Ravens, although Jacksonville D is not great. Nick Chubb looked pretty healthy, pretty strong in his first game back, and Baltimore D was pretty solid. But Romeo Doubs, Jordan Love has multiple other targets like Christian Watson and Jade Reed, who he has targeted just as much, and so I'm going to go with Nick Chubb. He is definitely a red zone target as well.
Give me Romeo Doubs this week against the abysmal Jaguars secondary. Doubs is the pick for me. Last week, he led the Packers in targets. The week before, he led them in fantasy points. I think he led the Packers receivers in fantasy points again last week, too. He had 17 points last week and didn't even have a touchdown. So Love was definitely looking his way all game. In the clutch, in the first quarter, it didn't matter the situation. He was looking Doubs' way. So I'm going to take Romeo Doubs, especially with Chubb against such a tough Ravens defense. Last week, if he doesn't get that touchdown too, he's got, 6 points or something? Mm-hmm. It wasn't consistent enough. I'll need to see another couple games out of Nick Chubb, especially coming off that ACL tear. So I'm taking Doubs. Next up, we're moving on to hidden gems. Waiver wire pickups rostered in less than 25% of leagues. First up, we've got Jalen McMillan, the Buccaneers wide receiver. He plays the Falcons this week and is rostered in just 1.4% of leagues.
Yes, I'm going to move on to Cedric Tillman, the Browns wide receiver. And although Deshaun Watson with the injury, he has been wide receiver one after the departure of Amari Cooper, and he got 12 targets Week 7. And I do think he should consistently get that many, and he was doing well with them. He got about 10 yards per reception.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of targets. He looked like the clear-cut wide receiver one. McMillan, too, he should see his target share increase, especially after Chris Godwin went down in the game last night. So, Tutu Atwell as well. He's scored more than 11 points in 4 straight weeks. He's been a pretty consistent threat for the Rams at receiver with the absences of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So I've got him on here as well. He's rostered in a higher percentage of leagues than the other two, but still just 15.3% of leagues. He plays the Vikings this week.
Yeah, I do think people have caught on to the limited receiving core in that Rams offense, and even though they still believe in it clearly, as Tutu Atwell, not a very well-known name, is rostered in significantly more than the other two receivers.
Some respect on my man, Shatarius Atwell. That's his real name. Drafted in 21 out of Louisville. Now moving on to our last segment, buy low, sell high. Which players should you trade for, and which should you trade away?
I'm going to go to Jalen Waddle. We talked about him in the previous weeks, I believe, but against a against a previously struggling Cardinals defense, Jalen Waddle, especially if Tua comes back, he should be getting a lot of targets, as in prior seasons he's gotten, I mentioned this, 1,000+ receiving yards every season, and he is still a great option for Tua, and make sure to pick him up either off waivers in smaller leagues or trade low for him, because he should be wide receiver 2 along Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, he was dropped in a few leagues, though not many. But yeah, he should definitely be someone you try and target. His production has not been very good ever since Tua got hurt, same with Tyreek, although I feel like managers of Tyreek are more aware of, oh, well, he's going to be the best when Tua comes back, whereas Waddle, I mean, you didn't even see that super consistent production with Tua. So, I mean, we'll see with Waddle, but he's definitely worth just a solid bench player, and I bet you could get him for that too. Tua could come back this week, although I think it's unlikely, though Waddle and Hill are projected as such. Next up, we've got Chase Brown against the Eagles.
Yeah, Chase Brown, he wasn't previously rostered in a lot of leagues. Eagles D is pretty good, but he's the clear-cut lead back for pretty good Bengals offense, and he's taken that job over Zach Moss. He's consistently dropped over 10 points, and he should be getting progressively more carries. So I think he's a great option.
Yeah, after that 7-point week, it's a perfect time to buy Brown. I mean, he's established himself as the clear-cut RB1 over Zach Moss. He's got at least double-digit touches for the last 4 weeks, just consistently getting himself a high volume, high workload, and he's a very big receiving threat as well. So he's definitely someone to buy. I think he's only projected like 11 too, so that helps.
Yeah, I'm going to move to Tank Dell against the Colts, and coming off a week of no receptions for 0 yards, I think he's an amazing option for buy low, as he should be either a wide receiver 1 or 2, depending on who you see between that Diggs-Dell committee. And Stroud also had a down week, but against a really not great Colts defense, Tank Dell is a perfect pickup coming off of a really abysmal down week.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Stroud shredded the Colts secondary in his career. Look for Dell and Diggs to have big days, and especially after that abysmal 0-point performance, now is the perfect time to buy Tank Dell. Moving on to sell. First up, we've got T. Higgins. He also plays the Eagles this week. And what's your take on that?
My take on that is that, especially with the increased workload of Chase Brown, I mean, T. Higgins, it's not even that he's a sell high. I think he's a sell really high, in that Jamar Chase is definitely still option 1, even with T. Higgins getting a good number of targets. It's that T. Higgins' production has been so good in the recent weeks that I think you should just sell him for more than what he was worth and get your worth for him before he has a couple down weeks, which I do predict happening. So, yeah, I do think he's a sell very high.
Next up, we've got Rachaad White, who just came off of an almost 30-point week yesterday against the Ravens. Yeah, he is, needless to say, a sell high, especially with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker also getting pretty decent touches in that backfield. Irving still found a way to get 17 fantasy points. Tucker averaged about 6 yards a carry, so that backfield's pretty clogged up now with all those backs. White found the end zone through the air both times, but coupled with his inconsistency over the past few weeks, but the entire season, his lack of production, I mean, his inefficiency rushing, if you can get a decent package for Rachaad White, it's the time to trade him, especially after he had that huge week.
Yeah, I agree with that. With a really deep Bucks running core, he is just, I don't think he is going to be as high value as he is at this moment. I think right now is the perfect time to sell him.
Yeah. Last up, we've got another Buccaneer. It's Baker Mayfield, who's averaging 23 fantasy points a game. He is the number 2 quarterback in fantasy. Yes, that feels weird to say now, but he is. So Mayfield is a sell high in my opinion, as he's the number 2 quarterback in fantasy. I don't think Mayfield keeps that up, but I mean, right now, he could definitely get you a decent package. And especially trade him now with the Godwin injury. Right now, we're not sure of the severity, but if it's bad, that is not good for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, especially with the deep running core that they have, that the Buccaneers have. And so Mike Evans grabbing his hamstring, I don't know what that was about last night. Is he okay?
Evans appears to be fine, but we'll see.
It might be a sign of weakness. I don't know. As you said, Godwin's carted off the field. We'll see how serious that is. But I do think Baker Mayfield is not going to have this high of a level of production. Maybe you should try to package him with Rachaad White. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. I'm Jet.
I'm Avi.
Signing off.
Oh God. Oh my God, we did it. Everybody knows. They know me where it snows. I ski in just like cold. If I didn't win what I do, guess what I ever know? 40 something really, but yeah, I've been told. I'm in my prime and this ain't even final form. They knock me down, but still my feet, they find the floor. I went from Chaminade straight out to Celtics core. Let's fight, but trust I'm ready for the war. Whoa, this is how the story goes. Whoa, I guess this is how the story goes.